This is the introduction to Bitcoin section of my book, and a disclaimer that I've done my best to simplify the technical concepts of Bitcoin and try to make it as simple as possible. So in the early days, in the 90s, when the internet was just gaining adoption and people were starting to use it, there was a fear of using credit cards on the internet because of theft of information. And it wasn't easily a method to transact value over the internet at this stage. There were early digital currencies, eCash, B-Money, Bitgold, Hashcash, but there wasn't really any widespread use or adoption. And enter in the Bitcoin white paper. A white paper is a report outlining a problem and a solution. It was shared by Satoshi Nakamoto in 2008, timing it perfectly with the recession. The white paper goes to describe a system that announces all the transactions publicly so everyone can see the transactions. Computers will copy and store all of these transactions, and no third party such as banks are needed. And this system will be secured by expending energy in the form of computer resources and electricity. Satoshi launched the Bitcoin blockchain in January 2009 and created the first Bitcoin block called the Genesis block, which rewarded Satoshi with 50 Bitcoin. Now, blocks linked together form the blockchain, and transactions that occur in the system are captured in these containers called blocks. Satoshi's identity remains a mystery to this date. We don't know if it's a male, female, or group, and that adds to the benefits of Bitcoin because we don't know who the founder is and has been left to the hands of the community. It's important to understand the history of money and what is money to really articulate and understand Bitcoin. It started around 6000 BC when we were exchanging physical objects like rhinestones, pearls, animal fur, and so on. Around 5000 BC, we started bartering with cattle, grain. Around 4000 BC, we discovered gold. 600 BC, we started making coins using metals. 800 AD, we created paper money. Around 1950, the first credit card was invented. In 1990, we had electronic money through the apps such as PayPal and other solutions. And then in 2009, we finally got Bitcoin. Let's dive into what exactly is money. Well, money is a medium of exchange. We're able to buy things with money. It's a unit of measure. Items are priced in money. So a bottle of water is $1. Money allows us to store value, meaning we can save money for the long term. Now, people need to believe an item holds value in order to exchange it. So if people believe Bitcoin has value, they will use it as a medium of exchange. Now, did you know that money supply is measured as three measurements, M0, M1, and M2? M0 is all the physical money, so the coins, the paper, cash that we all carry in our wallets and we keep at our homes. So that's the money in circulation. M1 is M0, so the money in circulation plus all the money in our checking accounts. M2 takes M1, includes all our savings and all the money in mutual funds to get us M2. Now, M0 is only 10% of all the money in circulation. The rest is basically digital, controlled by banks and other parties. So what the heck is a Bitcoin? Well, it's nothing physical. It's digital money. It's a live record of all transactions, also known as a ledger. When Satoshi created Bitcoin in 2009, Satoshi defined rules of the ledger. And the ledger records two things: the creation of Bitcoin and what happens to Bitcoin once it's created. Now, Bitcoin can move from one address to another. When someone says they own Bitcoin, it's nothing physical. The ledger says that there's Bitcoin in a particular address and the owner has access to that address. Now, typically when you buy items of value, you buy the whole item. There isn't a concept of buying a half or a quarter. Now, Bitcoin can be broken down. One Bitcoin is equivalent to 100 million Satoshis, meaning you can buy any quantity of Satoshis. So for example, if water is $1, it's much easier to say that you purchased a bottle of water for 4,000 Satoshis rather than 0.00004 Bitcoin. Bitcoin has quite a few attributes that make it superior money. It's portable, meaning it's easy to move around. Unlike carrying a cow or gold bars, Bitcoin just requires 12 or 24 words which capture your private keys. Bitcoin is verifiable. We can check if it's authentic because it's a public ledger. Transactions are broadcasted to the entire public, so we can check this ledger if the transaction is authentic or not. Bitcoin is fungible. It's the ability of an item to be interchangeable with another item of the same type. So two diamonds are not fungible because they have different carat, color, and so on. Two pieces of gold, when broken down or melted, are equivalent. Two Bitcoin are also fungible. Not the same level as gold, but it is fungible. Bitcoin is durable. It cannot be easily destroyed. Because Bitcoin is stored as a ledger in thousands of computers around the world, it can't be easily destroyed. It's divisible. You can break it into smaller parts because one Bitcoin is equivalent to 100 million Satoshis. It's scarce. It's not easy to obtain, and only 21 million Bitcoin will ever exist. And the most important feature, it's open to all. There's no need for permission to participate in the Bitcoin network. Banks are closed. Bitcoin is open. How does Bitcoin work? So we've defined ledger as a record of transactions. So the bank ledger that you typically accustomed to looking at, which is your statement of all your records of your payments, that's controlled by the bank. Well, Bitcoin is a decentralized ledger, meaning everyone has access to this ledger and there's no central authority. The ledger is stored on thousands of nodes across the world. And you can actually run your own node. All you need is a computer, an internet connection, and some storage space, and you can download the Bitcoin ledger yourself. I'll put up a video on how you can do that. So nodes make the Bitcoin system function, and there's two types of nodes. There's a miner node that adds transactions to the ledger and is rewarded with Bitcoin. There's a full node that keeps a copy of the entire ledger, meaning they have a copy of all the transactions that have happened in the Bitcoin ledger. Now, all these transactions that occur, so if Alice sends money to Bob and other transactions occur, they're captured in these containers called blocks. Now, these blocks, when chained together, form the blockchain. Now, miner nodes are looking to solve a puzzle called proof of work to create blocks. So let's define proof of work. It's a little advanced, but bear with me. Technically speaking, it's a puzzle or a hash function that requires a large number to be guessed correctly. A hash function takes an input of any length and outputs something of fixed length. So miner nodes are looking to guess a large number called a nonce when hashed with other information, provides an output with a fixed number of 0 bits. We'll talk about this later in further detail. But the takeaway here is proof of work is a hash function that requires a solution through guessing a number called a nonce. Creating blocks or proof of work takes a lot of energy. So a lot of computing power, a lot of electricity is how these blocks are created. Now, as the number of transactions go up, so do the number of blocks. And these blocks together form the blockchain. So when I wrote this book or released this book, there were roughly 797,000 blocks. I believe right now it's roughly 811,000. Now the blockchain is secured by cryptography, and cryptography is a method to secure information through the use of secret codes. So you take a message, you put it through a secret code, you can encrypt it, and you take the encrypted message, put it through the secret code, and you can decrypt it. And Bitcoin uses SHA-256, which is a secure hash algorithm, as its cryptography method. The system is considered secure when the honest nodes control more power than the attacker nodes. A concept that many people fail to recognize in Bitcoin is that it's scarce, meaning there's only a limited amount of Bitcoin. So when miner nodes expend energy to guess a large number through proof of work, a new block is added to the blockchain, and the miner is rewarded with new Bitcoin for doing that work. The miner also receives a transaction fee, but the new Bitcoin is very important because that's the issuance mechanism of Bitcoin. Bitcoin is programmed such that only 21 million Bitcoin will ever be created. And when Satoshi created the Bitcoin blockchain and guessed the proof of work for the first block was created, also known as the Genesis block, and for doing that work, Satoshi was rewarded with 50 Bitcoin. So in 2009, the reward per block was 50 Bitcoin, but in 2023, the reward per block is only 6.25. Why is that? Well, Bitcoin is programmed to have the reward per block every 210,000 blocks, which is roughly 4 years, because a block is added every 10 minutes. So we have a chart here that explains this issuance mechanism. We have on the y-axis Bitcoin to be created and time on the x-axis. The red here represents Bitcoin remaining to be created, and each block represents the reward per block during that timeline. So when Bitcoin was created in 2009, the reward per block was 50, meaning every 10 minutes when a block was added to the blockchain, 50 Bitcoin was provided as a reward to that miner. At the end of 4 years, 10.5 million Bitcoin was released and 10.5 was left to be created. And after 2012, the reward per block was 25. After 2016, it was 12.25, so on. Right now, the reward per block is 6.25, and next year, the reward will have again to 3.125. What this does, it creates a predictable supply of Bitcoin. When I wrote this book, there was roughly 19.4 Bitcoin that have been rewarded. Now it must be higher, around 19.6. And it's important to be aware that many people have lost access to their wallet, meaning the access to those Bitcoins are lost forever. The Bitcoin still exists on the ledger, but no one can access it. So how does one use Bitcoin? It's really simple. You download a Bitcoin wallet, whether on your computer or your cell phone. This app allows you to send and receive Bitcoin. The wallet generates what is known as a seed phrase. It's a list of words, whether it's 12 or 24, that store the information to recover your Bitcoin. It's known as the private key. We'll jump into this right after, but the wallet will provide an address for you to send and receive Bitcoin. And there's 2 formats that will be available. You can get it in a text format, which you can copy and send to someone else, or you get it as a QR code, which is perfect for scanning using your camera. So now to get into a little technical aspect of the private key and how it all works. Well, the private key is a secure code that lets you prove ownership to spend Bitcoin. So when you create a new wallet, through fancy math, a private key is generated. And through fancy math, that private key is shown to you as a seed phrase, which is 12 words. Now you need to keep this private because if you lose your private keys, you lose access to your Bitcoin. There's also something called a public key. A public key lets you receive Bitcoin. So when a private key is generated, through fancy math, a public key is also generated. And a Bitcoin address is generated from your public key. And that's the form of text or QR code that you see that you can use to send and receive Bitcoin. A public key is like an email address. You can share it. A private key is like a password. Do not share it. So why should you care about Bitcoin? Ultimately, Bitcoin is money for the internet. It's open to everyone. There's no permission needed. It does not require a third party. It's limited in supply. Only 21 million will ever exist. And it's secured by energy. Right now, we trust the banks, but can they always be trusted? These are just some news articles of banks failing across the world. Greece, Lebanon, Nigeria, America, Argentina, Switzerland. This isn't to fearmonger, but it's all to say that we need to trust ourselves and have an alternative in case more problems arise. You're probably thinking, this dude's crazy. Well, if we step back and think about the internet was created in 1970s as the protocol. iPhone came out in 2007. It wasn't until 2010 onwards that apps have ruled our lives. That took 40 years to go from creation to mass adoption. So it's like going to someone who was listening to the radio and telling them, hey, you're listening to the radio now, but in 40 years, something called Spotify will come up. They'll probably think the person's crazy. So Bitcoin is in the early stages. So just seek to learn, keep an open mind, ask questions, ultimately become a student of Bitcoin.